Here comes the sun.
Hello ladies and gentlemen and everyone watching. Today we'll be looking at some more disturbing PSAs. For those who don't know what PSAs are, they are public service announcements.
I'm Michael Jordan,
also known as PIFs in the UK. They're set out to address and inform the public on differing safety and social issues. And sometimes they can get a bit graphic or heavy with their message. And today we will be looking at just those.
They come in all imaginable colors, ages, and sizes.
Before fully jumping in, if you're new here, welcome. And if you're returning, it's good to see you again. Alright, let's get into it. Bear PSA, PETA. This PSA released by PETA, and we'll talk about PETA in a second, was released sometime around 2013, and it's to shock the audience into paying attention to the comparison of the torture of bears on humans. That is getting pierced in the nose with a hot rod and then getting a ring placed inside of it. And that is actually a practice that has been done on bears. Not as much in recent years though. Now, nose rings are pretty common with animals. You usually see it with cows or bulls or any sort of cattle. And nose rings on animals are simply there to control the animal, as the farmer or animal owner can tie a rope in between the nose ring and just make the animal go wherever. I mentioned it being common with cattle because that's pretty much accepted here in America at least, as it isn't considered torture or animal cruelty. That being said, it does definitely cause pain. Obviously when it's inserted, because no one likes getting a hot rod in them. If I was funnier, there'd be a sex joke there, but this world has withered me. Reportedly, the nose ring doesn't hurt the animal after it's been healed. But did the cow tell you that? Regardless on how you see the nose rings for cattle, one of the many animals that shouldn't have a septum ring is bears. And your grandmother, because you shouldn't be doing that to old people, unless she's a gnarly son of a gun. Historically, bears have gotten pierced in the nose, like this fellow over here, and had ropes and accessories tied into it. Sometimes it goes through the bridge, and sometimes it goes through the nostrils. It's up for the entertainer and torturer to decide. I say entertainer because in almost every single case with a bear getting pierced through its nose, it's been for entertainment of humans. Another thing we can add to the list of awesome things that humans do. You really gotta start to wonder, like, with all the crimes against humanity we've done, what did the dinosaurs do to get bombed by God? Praise the Lord! You may be thinking examples like circuses, and that's definitely one of them, which is why circuses have kind of died out, because people have realized, like, hey, you're kind of just beating the shit out of these animals, putting them in cages, and then harassing them around in a circle for our entertainment. But also, back in the day, as circuses were more popular, road stop entertainments were the thing. That's when you're just doing a family road trip, and then you see animals getting beat on the left side of the highway, and you're like, oh, that sounds like a fun night. Not only those forms of entertainment were very popular back in the day, but rampant animal cruelty was seen, as shown with this PETA PSA. The whole cattle and septum piercing rant was to let you guys know that it's common and also legal for cows and bulls to get nose rings. However, it's not legal for bears to get pierced, the same way that cows do. Or this fellow over here, as well as a lot of other animals. Like, you can't grab a hedgehog and then just pierce its nose. I've always thought that the people who like put animals in blenders because they're psychopaths, we should just make a giant blender and slowly lower them into it. But then people are like, oh, that's not justice. This practice has dwindled down because, you know, it's illegal. People aren't the biggest fans of torturing animals. But I think specifically it's because of PETA and their great work towards saving animals. It's definitely not because the general public started asking more questions about how the animals got fucking nose rings in them. Or like, hey, why does that bear not have ears anymore? Oh, you cut them off? Why? Now, you might have gotten the sense that I'm not the biggest fan of PETA, and it's like, how can you do that? They're an animals' rights organization. They care about animals. Do you not care about animals? Do you not care about animals? And it's like, no, I do care about animals, which is why I hate PETA. Let's start off with how you can't criticize them because of their whole message. Their whole brand and identity is being the good guy, even though they're one of the worst out there. I mean, they're there for animals and their protection. They'll definitely never kidnap your dog and then put it down 7 hours later, and then when you sue them, you only get $49,000 back.
Norfolk-based PETA will be facing a lawsuit over the death of a dog taken from the Eastern Shore. 2 years ago, 2 PETA workers took and euthanized a dog from a porch in Accomack County. PETA called the incident a mistake,
which you would think an animals' rights organization would give a shit more about an animal rather than just stealing it and then putting it down 7 hours later, which is illegal because there's supposed to be a certain grace period for strays found before they can get put down. Oh, and let's not forget that these animals were perfectly a-okay. PETA was just like, we can't have them. Look at the flowers.
For the rabbits.
The rabbits.
And I get the tender rabbit.
And on top of that, if you're an animals rights organization and you care so much about animals and you're in people's comments demeaning them and try to scare them into contributing to your foundation, they definitely wouldn't have one of the highest, if not the highest, euthanasia rate on animals. That can't happen. I thought they cared about animals and weren't just keyboard warriors. You're petting your cat too hard and you're not feeding them the right food and then they'll link their own food. They wouldn't do that. Alright, enough of the sarcasm. PETA is a foundation. It feels like they kill animals for fun. They definitely kidnap animals. That's not just me rambling. They kidnapped this girl's animals, put it down 7 hours later, which was illegal, but you would think that an animals rights organization would probably keep an animal alive a bit longer if it was a stray, just in case someone came around. Or, here's an idea, crazy idea. They'll keep the animal alive and try to find it a new home that isn't God. And now to do one more roundabout. I really like animals, and I think we should respect them, and treat them with respect and dignity that they deserve as something that feeds us. Without them, we wouldn't be here. So when I see people beating on animals, I want to beat on them. I think a lot of people can relate to that sentiment. So when I look at something like in 2023, when it was reported that PETA had the highest euthanasia rate in 2023, and then they say it's because animals are injured or they can't find homes, that's bull. Alright, my PETA rant's over. To give credit where credit is due, this PSA, as well as many other released by PETA, does highlight the abuse and make people aware of what's going on when they might not know that has existed. I didn't know humans were like, yeah, let's give bears septum rings because entertainment. What the f? Moreover, this is one of the most tamest PSAs that PETA has released. Some of the other ones just show straight animal cruelty and torture. And I admire those PSAs because they show the reality of what is going on in certain places. Also with this PSA specifically, I like the grittiness of it. It looks like a video. And on top of that, the effects, the screams, just everything about it is pretty horrifying. If you learned today that we used to pierce bears because we're so awesome, then let me know. And also, let me know your thoughts on PETA, because I feel like I can't be the only one who thinks that way about them. And on top of that, it's like thin ice to criticize them because they're always like, we're the good guys. There's never always a good guy. And I don't think the good guy has a 78% euthanasia rate of animals that can't defend themselves. But that's just me. Moving on. Hey, if you like that rant, you should leave a like on the video. Real tracks, real life, real trains, British Transport Police. This 2016 British PIF is just public informational film. Same thing as public service announcement, but America has to be different from the UK. Justifiably, I'd say.
Oh, look at that. That is a nice, thick gravy.
The PSA released by the British Transport Police sets out to illustrate how one should always be 100% aware of their surroundings and make sure that they're following proper safety rules in regards to the track. Specifically, do not trespass on the tracks because it's trespassing for a reason. It's not because they don't want you on the property, it's because they don't want you to get turned into red mist for a multitude of reasons. In the PSA, it illustrates the dangers by showing multiple near misses, building up the audience's suspension, and hope for it to not climax. Unfortunately, the final shot shows a man trying to squeeze by a moving train, which I want to insert this right now. He does survive, so when I say this next part, don't come after me. Why are you trying to squeeze past a train? As the man tries to squeeze past, he gets caught and then thrown under the train. As mentioned, miraculously, he survived. Granted, he is paralyzed now for the rest of his life and cannot walk. That being said, that force that dragged him under the train, and maybe it's just me and having Instagram, and which is so cool that Instagram just turns into Live Leak every once in a while.
Everybody comes in.
No! Don't leave!
My casket.
I've seen deaths involving trains. I think the worst one was a dude getting like sliced in half. But in all those gore videos that Instagram wants to show you when you wake up, the violence and ferocity that bodies get thrown around at by trains is disturbing as hell. And this man is so fortunate that he survived that. Not just survived that he's still in one piece. This PSA is part of the You versus Train campaign, and it does a great job at showing the consequences of trespassing on the railroad, hoping the message gets through specifically to the younger people. As throughout the clips, it's mainly younger people who are just messing around on trains, running across, or pretty much just playing chicken with trains. I once had a friend like that, not with trains because we weren't in the city, and America doesn't really care about public transportation unless they can get paid with Ford, Chevy, and F-150s. Buy our trucks that are fucking huge and you don't know how to park it.
Have you ever been beaten by a wet spaghetti noodle by your girlfriend because she has a twin sister and you got confused and fucked her dad? Well, that's how it feels to drive a Ford F-250.
What's that? You can't see a 4-year-old? Headstrong, brother. I hate those fucking trucks. Not just because the people who drive them are usually douchebags and don't know how to drive their truck that they don't even use for truck purposes, but those big ass buses got rid of these trucks. I like these trucks. I wanted one of these trucks growing up, and then I grew up and they were like, oh, you want one of these? $60K. What, excuse me? I got a
Subaru because I'm gay.
And the all-wheel drive, and the miles per gallon is and on top of that, if there was some old grandma who's only 5 foot tall, I would see them before running them over and causing a funeral. My friend would always play chicken with cars, like whenever we were walking home from school. It was mainly just two of them just pushing each other in the road, and then they did it to me once, and I literally fought them. And then I'm the crazy one because I wanted to fight them rather than a car coming at me head on. I made a lot of bad friends here. Trains.
Release the brainstorm.
The PIF is mainly directed towards younger people. As the British Transport Police have stated, in the past decade, 170 young people have died from accidents caused by trespassing on the tracks, which is why most of the footage is younger people. I don't know if the PIF message would get through to younger people because younger people, they're f***ing crazy. Regardless of that, I think the PIF does a good job at showing the brutal reality of what will happen if you trespass around a train. A train, and just really any machine, is unforgiving. They don't have feelings. If you scream in pain, oh well. The PIF really didn't receive any backlash, which is kind of amazing when it comes to PSAs. Almost always there will be someone who is like, I don't like that because it's graphic. And that's perfectly okay. Not everyone wants to see graphic stuff. But airing in the UK, and specifically on online forums, as this wasn't shown on TV, at least from my research. If I'm wrong and you've seen it on TV, then let me know. But the fact that it didn't get to mass amounts of people probably helped the fact that there wasn't that much backlash. Over and above the limited ad space, the problem with younger people in the UK playing around train tracks and just being reckless with their lives is an apparent problem in the UK. A lot of the online comments in the forums, well, a lot of them are just like boomers being like, oh, the dumb young folk. Like, dude, y'all drink and beat your families for fun. Like, I think every generation has some pretty qualities to it. But the ones who aren't just going after the younger people, they're saying, yeah, we should show the younger people and the people who are trespassing on tracks how unforgiving a train truly is. If you think this PSA does a good job at showing the disturbing qualities, as well as imprinting their message, then let me know. Shoeboxes. Africare. Rwanda Relief Appeal. 1995. Shoebox is directed by Patrick and Michael Advertising Agency for Rwanda Relief Appeal from Africare. It's based in the United States, and this PSA was released in 1995. Africare is a non-profit organization based in Washington, D.C., which provides development aid for Africa. And during the times of 1990 to 1994, Africa really needed it, as the Rwanda Civil War was waging, as well as the genocide, both causing an estimated 800,000 to 1 million deaths. The vast majority of victims were members of the Tutsi minority ethnic group. And Shoeboxes illuminates the horrific nature of the effects of war, trying to get people's attention by showing the unsettling imagery of the graphic reality that was happening in Rwanda. Finally showing dead children on the ground, one little infant in a box, next to other dead children. It is haunting, and the way it asks for aid, I think, is pretty well. A lot of people don't like asking for help, especially when it comes to money, but I believe the way the PSA asks for your aid is in a pretty humble manner. The PSA tries to scare you and play on your empathy to donate, but I feel like that isn't really on purpose. That's just showing the reality of what's happening. The people behind the camera weren't like, hey, you should stop eating for like months on end, or like, hey, children, you should die so we can record you. But saying anything helps makes asking for something less rude. More importantly, anything did help at the time. Shoeboxes is mainly found on the internet, as well as most PSAs that actually show gore or real death. TVs will take money for ad spaces, but there's certain things that they can't show, which is why you barely see some of these disturbing PSAs air on TV. The reception for Shoeboxes was pretty well received, mainly praising the advert's ability to get its message across, while many more people were just acknowledging the horror that they just saw. And that was just a slice of the horror that was going on in Rwanda. During the Civil War, if you were born in the wrong tribe, not only would torture and death almost be inevitable, but if you were a woman or a child, sexual violence was rampant at this time. I said 800,000 to 1 million people died. Well, 250 to 500,000 cases of rape against women and children were reported. That's reported cases. So many victims don't come forward due to fear, or specifically in this time because they're dead. And the PSA does acknowledge that fact, and I frankly don't think it could have included that while still being a good PSA, and still being a PSA that gets its message across. Because if you show 30 seconds of death, sexual assault, and rape, and then throw a message at the end, I feel like viewers might be too shocked to be in the right headspace. I think the limited picture that Shoeboxes released gets people curious enough to at least look into what's happening. And if they look into what's happening, maybe they'll donate. So I'm a fan of Shoeboxes highlighting another stain on humanity. Floating Fetus, pre-Rana, 2006. This 2006 Indian PSA, as detailed, shows a floating fetus in a river, with multiple shots. Some of them she's floating on her back, and we see what she looks like from the front. Others she's just face down in the water, and there's a shot where she gets swept up on the shore, and she's just laying there idle. This is a real fetus. This isn't fake, this isn't a doll. It's unsettling and graphic, but frankly it's just tragic. Even more sad is the message and reason behind it. I don't think this PSA, directed by Kevin Alfonso, is trying to exude the message to you saying, hey, you shouldn't abort your baby. I don't think the PSA is covering that topic at all, so I don't want you guys to think that. Rather, the problem that the PSA is taking head on, as in India as well as many other places, but India specifically, India has one of the strongest preferences in sons, which tragically means if someone has a daughter, there's a very likely chance that that little girl will get killed at some point, or given up for adoption, but statistically, in India, it's usually death to the child or the fetus. You might know of this problem that happened in China, when they had the one-child rule, so people are just choosing sons over daughters. And here's my take, a lot of dudes are asses. We don't need an egregious amount of them. I personally don't want to see more dudes walking around. And you might think that's ignorant since I made it to this age and I'm still kicking. But the UNICEF reported that 14,000 female fetuses are killed every day in India. That's daily. 14,000. Now we have to take into account how big the population is for India. Regardless, that's so many. And the floating fetus is a part of the Stop Female Foeticide campaign, which aimed to raise public awareness about this issue. I think the PSA hits the mark perfectly, but I can acknowledge that this is going to put off so many people from not even wanting to watch the rest of the video, which is why the graphic imagery in this PSA made it only viewable online. It gained traction on YouTube as well as the campaign site, and the reception for it was mainly just shock and horror. A lot of people like myself didn't realize that this was an issue, especially 14,000 a day. It's just stunning. It's a rough 30 seconds to endure it. Baha Tulian.
Our newest tourist attraction is not a resort.
So, I can't even show you what that image is, but let's use our critical thinking skills and context clues. If the PSA is titled and there's shown images in it, what do you think those images are? Because of YouTube and TikTok, I am going to censor the hell out of this. I will tell you what's happening though. It's a bunch of people. Most of them you can tell are children. making out with a dude who's not a child, and they're all naked. The first image I don't have to censor. I feel like you guys kind of understood where this was going. It's just the fact that it shows you an actual image of a horrendous crime being enacted. It is shocking. The PSA was created by Baha Talion. It's a child's rights organization working to fulfill children's rights and to prevent and respond to the abuse and violence against children. And with this PSA that was released in 1998, it plays into that notion of showing the shocking imagery to get the viewer's attention. And compared to so many other PSAs that are pretty heavy talking about this topic, it shows an actual image of it happening. If you're a creep and you're trying to find this PSA for reasons other than morbid curiosity, it's still censored on the PSA. You're not going to find actual imagery on this PSA. But to all those who do have morbid curiosity, I can't recommend you watch this PSA. Does the PSA do a good job at getting your attention and being like, hey, problem over here? Absolutely. I don't think it does much other than that. And I mentioned it before when talking about PSAs, but if you shock the audience too much, they're not going to be able to get the message. And you want to know something even crazier? The PSA shockingly aired on TV, specifically in the Philippine region, but I can't find what channels they aired on. That amazes me. There are so many other PSAs that are so much tamer than this one that just don't get shown on TV because it's too much. And it did garner a fair amount of backlash. You heard my point of view where I don't like how a PSA shows something graphic and then say that this is a problem that's happening and then don't give a solution for it. Or something that the viewer can do to fight the problem. But the backlash online was mainly with people being like, you didn't have to show an actual image of this to get people aware of the problem of pedophilia. Yet I would actually argue against that point because I think nowadays especially, it is good to show the reality of pedophilia. I think a lot of people just acted like that wasn't as big as it is. More and more, we see that, no, this is very common. Very, very, very common. And I think the more that people realize that we need to protect children better, the less the problem will become. No matter how rich and powerful the ones who are perpetrating these horrible acts on these children. I know I said it doesn't really tell you what to do. It says to call the police, which I just feel like is a bit mundane. And that might just be me being upset that pedophiles really don't ever get true justice. How many Chris Hansen videos have you seen where they just walk away after 6 months? But at the end of the day, if someone needs to be told, don't turn a blind eye to pedophilia, and it works on them, then I think the PSA worked. So I guess I just have conflicting feelings about this PSA. Let me know your thoughts on that down below. Do you think this PSA had to show the real imagery to get the message across? And those were just some of the most disturbing PSAs that I could find on the internet. If you liked any of them or my ramblings, then leaving a like really helps out. And if you liked it so much, then think about subscribing. If I haven't convinced you yet, but you still like the PSA form, I have a ton of other PSA videos. I have a couple that have the template of this, where we're going over a couple of PSAs, but I also have some ones where we go over longer form PSAs. If you have any other disturbing PSAs that I failed to mention that have been stuck in your head, then let me know down below. I really like looking at public service announcements because I like seeing how far directors and production companies will go with their graphic imagery, all in the name of education. Alright, that's enough talking by myself in my room. See you guys next week. Bye.
You've taught your children to be polite and friendly, but have you taught them when not to be?
Hi there. Do you live around here?
Uh-huh.
You going to school?
Yes.
Well, I could give you a ride.
Last year, 50,000 children disappeared, many of them from nice, safe neighborhoods.
It's okay.